Here's Jeremy Bobasi in the box, left side, scores! Jeremy Bobasi drove it low, far post, beats Maric, 1-0. Right side, edge of the 18, sends it across the box. Valeri brings it down. Valeri in the box, off the post and in! Diego Valeri has done it again, and it is 2-0 Portland Timbers, and it's over. The Timbers with 2 straight wins to start the MLS's back tournament, and they have guaranteed advancement to the knockout round with a 2-1 win over the Houston Dynamo. It is the final day of the group stage at the MLS's back tournament outside of Orlando, Florida. The Portland Timbers know that they are through to the knockout round, playing for first place in Group F tonight against LAFC. We are at Providence Park. This is Timbers Pregame, presented by Carl's Jr. I'm Jake Zivin, alongside Nat Borchers. The Timbers have a little bit of comfort going into this match tonight against LAFC, 7:30 on ESPN2, as they know that they will either finish first or second in the group. If they win or draw, they'll win the group. If LAFC wins, LAFC will win the group. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll get you ready for the match. We'll get more into what that means, whether or not the Timbers win the group or finish second. We'll hear from the Timbers in Orlando. Ross Smith will join us to break down LAFC. And we want to hear from you as well. Submit your questions for Nat or for myself on the Timbers social media channels. If you're watching on YouTube, you can write in the comments as well. It's an interesting situation for the Timbers tonight because they know they've advanced. At the worst, they'll finish second in the group. It's a regular season match, technically, so 3 points are on the line. Big picture, Nat, how do you approach a match like this?
Well, Jake, the Timbers have everything to play for here. They're in the driver's seat. They've had 2 really good performances, one against LA Galaxy where they dominated the tempo. They got the first goal. And then the second game against the Houston Dynamo where maybe they didn't dominate everything the whole game, but they played very well. They got the goal. And it's very important, I think, you look at this LAFC matchup, and the Timbers have confidence going into this. The attack is clicking. Defensively, they've been playing very solid. And I think the only question for me is how Gio comes up with his team, because he has everything to play for right now. They know what they need to do when it comes to the result. So a great position to be in. It's the driver's seat.
And Nat, you mentioned the 2 wins for the Timbers so far in this tournament, both by the score of 2-1 last week against the LA Galaxy, last Saturday against the Houston Dynamo. And that's how we got here. That's how the Timbers knew that they were automatically going to advance to the knockout stage, regardless of what happens in this third and final game of the group stage. A 2-1 win over Houston. Again, Nat, looking good. I mean, in 2 games, 2 wins, 2 good performances from the Timbers.
And they inserted Jimmy Chara into this one as a starter, and he did a great job of really stretching that Houston Dynamo backline. He made some really important runs in behind that really opened the game up, and you see Sebastian Blanco being dangerous. Every time Sebastian Blanco gets on the ball, he's looking for Jeremy Ebobisse. This pass here is clinical, and Jeremy Ebobisse, what technique to just finish that thing, far post, narrow angle, and this opened up the scoring for the Timbers. That's what they've done so well, Jake, in these games, is getting that first goal, being hard to play against initially in the game, and then making sure they give the attack the opportunity to score goals, because once you get that opportunity, you put it in the back of the net, you put the game to rest. And this one right here is fantastic for me. Just the entry ball in from Eric Williamson, with Valeri on the turn, showing what he can do, so gifted in the box. It was a clinical performance again from the Timbers. 2 great performances for these guys.
So here are the MLS's back tournament Group F standings presented by Pacific Office Automation as we go into the final day of the group stage for Group F. The Timbers with their 2 wins atop the group with 6 points. LAFC has 1 win, a big win, 6-2 over the Galaxy on Saturday, and 1 draw. That was 3-3 against Houston. So they have 4 points. Houston and LA, they play first tonight. The winner of that match has a chance to advance. Houston, if they win, will advance. The Galaxy need to win by a lot to advance. Here is the bracket for the knockout round. The 2 spots to look at, F1 and F2. If the Timbers win or draw tonight, they win the group. They're F1. They play Cincinnati on Tuesday. If they lose tonight, they're F2, second place in the group, and they play the Seattle Sounders on Monday.
let's be honest, there's a big difference in competition playing against FC Cincinnati versus the Seattle Sounders. I think Cincinnati is the matchup you want. Seattle Sounders will be a much more difficult matchup. It would be a rivalry game, but I think that Cincinnati is the game you want to get through the next round.
How much, we think that, right? And a fan could think that some fans might want to see Seattle. They might want that rivalry match. But on paper, okay, you'd rather play Cincinnati, right? As a team going into the game, how much are you thinking about that scenario, and how much is that motivating you to have the better matchup in the knockout round?
Well, you hope you're not thinking about it too much, because you have to focus on the importance of the game. And I think Gio is going to be telling the guys that in the locker room. Look, guys, we don't know how this is going to go. You have to focus on this performance. You have a good performance, you'll get the result, because you can't be playing just to play Cincy, or you can't be playing to avoid Seattle. You just want to play your best football right now and get the result that you need.
Yeah, the scenario for LAFC basically flip-flopped. An LAFC win, they get Cincinnati. A draw or a loss, they get Seattle. They could lose tonight. The Timbers could win, and LAFC could drop all the way down to third in the group if Houston blows out the Galaxy. But pretty much we're looking at either Portland or LAFC playing Seattle, the other one playing Cincinnati in the knockout round. We'll talk more about the matchup with LAFC, last year's Supporter Shield winners. They're flying to start this year as well. Nat's keys to the match when we come back on Timbers Pregame, presented by Carl's Jr.
Happy presents a spicy Western. Western with kick. The new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy.
Still about 3.5 hours away from kickoff, just outside of Orlando, Florida. The Timbers and LAFC. They'll play the final match of the entire group stage tonight at 7:30 on ESPN2. These are two teams that have developed quite a rivalry over the past 2 seasons. LAFC's only 2 seasons in MLS. Every time they play, it's feisty. That the sidelines will go at it against each other. On the field, they'll go at it against each other. And LAFC, Nat, last year put together the best regular season in MLS history. Most points, 72, of any team in an MLS regular season. They've picked up where they've left off, at least goal-scoring wise. They dropped 6 on the Galaxy on Saturday. They're a tough opponent, maybe as tough as it gets in MLS. So what are the Timbers' keys tonight? What do they need to do to be successful against LAFC?
Well, it's a tough task for the Portland Timbers tonight, because you're playing against the best team in the league, and they like to get numbers forward. And when they get numbers forward, they get their outside backs forward, their wingers forward, their midfield players forward. They open up gaps in the middle. So I think for the Portland Timbers, if they can attack that middle of the pitch whenever LAFC has come down the middle at them, I think they're going to have tons of space to find the plays and to find those passes. I think secondly, direct play is going to be important. LAFC, they have a light back line. They can get beat with balls over the top, and I think it's going to be important for the Timbers, when they do get on the ball, to look for those balls over the top and try to find those wingers with those long passes. And finally, defend R&R. R&R, Rodriguez, and Rossi, those are the 2 most dangerous players for LAFC in the attack, and I think there's going to be a lot of 1v1 situations. The outside backs, they're going to have to be good defensively 1v1, and they're going to have their wingers come back and defend for them, help them out, so that there's not always a 1v1 proposition.
LAFC will have that combination of Rossi and Rodriguez. The combination that's worked so far for the Timbers this tournament has been Sebastian Blanco and Jeremy Ibobasi. 3 of the 4 goals the Timbers have scored this tournament, the last 2 players to touch it for the Timbers, Blanco and Ibobasi.
Yeah, and these guys are always looking for each other, and you always have to have a creator, you always have to have a finisher in the game of soccer, and these 2 guys right now, they're looking for each other, they're finding each other. I think the fact that Ibobasi has been finishing so well makes Blanco want to find him even more, and I think a situation like this, where Sebastian Blanco, he's getting on the ball, he's able just to pick up the scraps from something that Ibobasi just created. It's just so important for those 2 to be on the same page, because as the Timbers attack goes, it seems that they score these goals. And you look here on the movement from Ibobasi, he just finds himself in the box. There's 3 or 4 players around him. Blanco's still able to find him in the box. And I think that for the Timbers, they're going to love seeing these 2 players always find each other in the attack.
The 4th goal that they've scored this tournament didn't involve either of those 2. It was really pretty. Break it down.
Yeah. This is such a fun goal for me. The Timbers win the ball from the Houston Dynamo long ball, and then it's the entry ball here that sets things up for them. You see Eric Williamson finding Ibobasi, who has come back to the ball, and it really allows the Portland Timbers to get numbers forward and establish themselves in that middle third, because when they establish themselves, they are one of the best, most dynamic teams in this league with the quality they have. But look how many numbers are able to get into that middle third. It's 8 players for the Portland Timbers midfield, strikers and outside backs getting forward. And as this ball cycles around, you'll notice the Houston Dynamo defense is very compact. They're in a 2 blocks of 4 and a block of 2 for their strikers, and it's that portion of the field they don't want the Timbers to play in. So the Timbers are forced to move the ball back around and rotate it. And as the Houston Dynamo get their line out, this is where the magic happens. Mabiala gets on the ball, and he recognizes the 2 runs that the Portland Timbers attackers make are to the ball. Eric Williamson, though, he makes a run in behind, and Mabiala recognizes this. That's the space that he wants to play into. Williamson makes the run. Mabiala makes the pass. And from here on out, it's just a wonderful play. Williamson with a laser of a pass into Valeri, who is just the maestro still, making things happen in the box. And it's a fantastic team goal. And that just shows you how dynamic these guys can be in the attack, Jake.
Each of the Timbers' first 2 games in this tournament, they've not only scored the first goal, they've gone up 2-0. It's been almost 2 years since the Timbers have scored first and lost a game. Last year, they were the only team in the entire MLS to have not lost a game that they scored first in. That's key tonight. If they can score first against LAFC, could bode well for them, though LAFC, of course, one of the best attacking teams in the league. It's going to take more than just 1 goal, most likely, to beat them tonight. When we come back on Portland Timbers pregame, presented by Carl's Jr., we're going to break down why LAFC is so good. Ross Smith takes a look both at their attack and maybe some of their defensive vulnerabilities as well.
Happy presents a spicy Western. Western gone spicy. The new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy.
Welcome back, live at Providence Park. Portland Timbers pregame presented by Carl's Jr., getting you ready for the Timbers and LAFC tonight, 7:30 on ESPN2. LAFC, they score a lot of goals. Last year, they scored the most goals of any team in league history. Over 80 goals scored throughout that season. Their main man, the league MVP, Carlos Vela, 34 goals, an MLS record. He's not with the team in Orlando. He stayed back in Southern California to be with his wife, who is pregnant, who is in the middle of a high-risk pregnancy. But they haven't lost a step without Carlos Vela. 9 goals in their 2 games at the MLS's back tournament. Diego Rossi scored 4 against the LA Galaxy, the 13th time in MLS history a player has scored 4 goals in a game.
He's a dangerous player, Ross. Sorry, Jake. He obviously is so good attacking down that flank, and he's got the pace, he's got the skill, and he's got the finishing ability too. I mean, you look at the goals he scored against the LA Galaxy. He was in the right place at the right time, and he really times his runs really well with that LAFC midfield. And I think that's been really important for him, and he stepped up in the wake of Carlos Vela not being around.
Now it's time to talk to Ross. Ross Smith breaks down LAFC.
What makes LAFC so good going forward is that they have good quality individuals who understand what spaces to take up on the pitch, and they have good movement. If we go back to one of their 6 goals against LA Galaxy, we see where the ball starts. And it's Eduard Atuesta, who for me is one of the best ball-playing southern midfielders in the league. Instead of just kicking the ball anywhere, it's a nice simple pass out to the right back, Blackman. Now, as Blackman comes up the pitch, he's surveying, he's got options. I'll circle the attacking 3 in yellow, and then the attacking red player, Marc-Anthony Kaye, is releasing himself from midfield to give extra numbers. Now, as Blackman plays in that ball, it's laid off. You can see the movement all around that eventually leads to a Rossi goal. If we take one last little angle look at this goal, you can see the spacing of the front 3 that I've highlighted in yellow here. You can see how far apart they are. They give each other their space to work into. And then there's Marc-Anthony Kaye providing that angle, providing the pass out of midfield into Bradley Wright Phillips, who does well to get the strike away, and then Rossi following it up. But as good as LAFC are going forward, they are vulnerable at the back. A big reason they sold Walker Zimmerman to Nashville SC in the offseason, and they haven't been able to fill that gap. Here, with LA Galaxy going down towards their back line, you can see the center back Jakovic. He's out of position. The back four are disconnected, and this is where Jakovic should be. Instead, he's trailing behind, and it leaves a massive gap for LA Galaxy to play into. Eventually, they find a little bit of space, and it leads to a penalty decision. If we take one last look at this positioning of the back four and then the lack of communication, there's Blackman, the right back, and he follows his player past the center back instead of communicating and passing that player on. Then everybody could have stayed in their own space. What happens instead? The back four is scrambling, and again, it leads to the penalty decision. So as good as LAFC can be, the Timbers know that they are beatable.
Yeah, really difficult to stop, but also maybe a little vulnerable in the back. LAFC, the Timbers' opponent tonight, 7:30 on ESPN2. Now, time to hear from you all. Social media, we put it out for question and answer session with Nat. Let's start with Brian on Twitter. Do you think Gio rolls with a best 11 to try for a win or rotates?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think that for Gio, he's going to be thinking more about rotation because he knows he's got a game in 3 to 4 days, and it's going to be important to get some of those guys with a little bit more miles on those legs to get some rest here. So I think it's going to be a bit of rotation. I wouldn't imagine it's going to be a massive overhaul, but I would imagine a few pieces here and there in the midfield, in the back, maybe at the forward position.
And tough decisions for Giovanni Savarese, Bob Bradley to make. The Timbers, one of the oldest teams in MLS, one of the oldest cores in MLS. LAFC, one of the youngest. We'll see how the two managers pick their lineups tonight. Rob via Twitter, do you think Pablo Bonilla will lock down the starting right back position? We of course saw him start against Houston on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think that Pablo Bonilla had a good outing for his first start in Major League Soccer. I think the first half he was a little bit out of position here and there. Second half he locked things down a bit better. He was more engaged with the center back, and he connected a lot more of those passes. I liked seeing him get some minutes. I think he's got a nice base to build off of from those minutes he got, and I think he certainly is going to start to make his case to be a starting right back.
Speaking of youth, just 20 years old, looking bright for the future for the Portland Timbers. Mike writes in via Facebook, what are the keys to being successful tonight on the offensive end?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think being direct with LAFC is important. They commit all those numbers forward, and then you have these gaps that just they leave in behind. And with a backline that isn't as quick as maybe Bob Bradley would like, I think there's some real options for the Timbers to get after him. You saw in the Houston game, Houston was really able to get after him and scored 3 goals against him. This is a team also that has allowed Jake 8 goals in 3 games, so they're definitely vulnerable defensively.
Yeah, they've scored 12 goals in those 3 games, but they have allowed 8. Nelson writes in via Facebook, who on the Timbers defense will need to have a good performance tonight?
Well, I think specifically the outside backs because they're going to be under a lot of pressure, certainly with Rodriguez and Rossi, potentially Latif Blessing running out there at them. That's where the talent is for this LAFC team, and that's where they create all their goals. So whoever's in the outside back position going to have to be good 1v1. Move your feet. You're also going to want to get a lot of help from your wingers, so hopefully the wingers are coming back and helping those guys out tonight because they're going to need it.
Yeah, Diego Rossi, Brian Rodriguez, 2 of the best young wingers in MLS. Tough task for the Timbers tonight, one that they've been up to, of course, in the past. The last time these two teams played, it was the U.S. Open Cup last year in L.A. The Timbers defeated LAFC 1-0 to move on to the semifinals. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back from Providence Park. When we return, we're going to go to Orlando. We'll hear from Giovanni Savarese and Eric Williamson when we return on Timbers Pregame Live, presented by Carl's Jr.
Happy presents a spicy Western. Western with kick. The new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy.
We're back. Beautiful day in Portland. We are live at Providence Park. Portland Timbers pregame presented by Carl's Jr. Probably the breakout player of this tournament for the Portland Timbers has been Eric Williamson. Started the first 2 games, put in really good, solid performances, had the first assist of his MLS career on what would be the game-winning goal against Houston on Saturday. Earlier, I spoke with Eric from Orlando. Eric, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. Let's start big picture with the team. 2 wins, 2 games. You guys have already advanced to the knockout stage. How are you in the group feeling after what's obviously been a really good start at the MLS's back tournament?
You know, there's a little bit of relief. 6 points to start off the tournament. Knowing it's going toward the regular season, it's massive. Guys went out and we worked hard in the first 2 games, and sitting top of the group, it's a good feeling. But as we've all said, the job's not done yet. I think moving forward, we want to continue to get another 3 points moving on to the season, and then move on and just win the cup from there. And I think 9 points will put us in a good spot, just knowing we are going to be top of the group and win the group as a whole. So I think we just want to go out there and win another 3 points.
For you individually, you started both the games. We've talked to Gio a lot about your progression, and he's mentioned the coaching staff and they've worked with you for a couple years to get to this point. How would you describe how your game has changed since you first arrived in Portland that's allowed you to earn these opportunities?
There's a lot of conversations that go on between me, Gio, and the coaching staff. I always ask for tips, and I always ask for what I can do to be in a better position, or what's the best decision to make in this situation, that situation. I think they've helped me the entire time. I think my time playing with T2 allowed me to experience a professional game, and I think those games help. And then you take what you learn in those games, you bring it to the MLS level, and I think the transition's been great. I think ever since I've been getting minutes, it's been them help me along as I'm going on to make sure that I'm in the best situation, I'm in the best position possible to continue to play.
Get to play next to Diego Chara in the midfield as an 8, Diego as the 6. What's it like playing with him?
Diego, we call him the Godfather because what he does for this club and this organization is unreal on and off the field. And being able to learn from him, being able to learn from Valeri, Seba, just someone who's connecting the defensive group with the attacking group, I think is massive. And Diego tells me what he needs me to do in the game, and sometimes it's, oh, Diego's telling me what to do. I'm a little bit in a panic, but at the same time, it's he trusts me and I trust him, and it's a good partnership that we have, and I think it's just something we can continue to make stronger.
In Florida, you guys have a little bit of downtime, obviously, in the hotel. How have you spent the free time that you've had?
A lot of it is reading or just video games. As a lot of people know, I beat Jabo and Katana a decent amount, so we've done that a little bit. Jabo, Chris has now picked it up, and some of the other guys as a 4th player have continued to play Katana, and I think that's our late night game is just play a game of Katana, keep us busy for a couple hours, and then back to our rooms, whether it's sitting on our phones or watching a movie, watching Netflix or something. It's just a lot of time just together, but at the same time just a little bit of downtime just to kind of sit back and relax a little.
Yeah, you guys are famous for being avid settlers of Catan players. Have you had to recruit teammates to get a full game?
Yeah, Chris picked it up once we got here. It was his first time playing, and he's downloaded it on his phone, and every night he's playing when he's not with us. So he's what we would call addicted now, and it's been fun. Chris thinks he's done a little bit, but at the same time, it's me and Jabo bullying him a little bit there. So.
There you go. Let's get back to on the field. LAFC, the final match of the group stage. It's for the group. Even though you guys know you're through to the knockout stage, a win or a draw, you'll win the group, and it's a regular season game. How do you guys as a team approach playing an LAFC team that obviously won the Supporters Shield last year?
It's a really talented group. You've seen what they've done so far in this tournament, and I think it's managing their attack, but at the same time, the flexibility of our attack, I think is something that they are a little cautious of as well, and I think that's something that we have to take into consideration, is that we're gonna be able to attack, we're gonna be able to go at them, but at the same time we manage what they have going forward. And I think knowing we want another 3 points to tackle into the season, I think is something we're going to go for. And, whether or not it happens, I think, the guys are going to put it all out there to make sure that, we are in the best situation possible to win the group and get these 3 points.
Eric, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us ahead of that game against LAFC. Good luck against LAFC, and good luck as you guys move forward into the knockout round.
Thank you. Thank you.
Giovanni Savarese told us that outside of the team, Eric Williamson is probably the biggest surprise for everybody in this tournament. What have you made of his first 2 games of this tournament?
Well, watching him play for T2, it was obvious he had the talent and the ability to really boss midfields, and he would just take over games at the T2 level, just in terms of his ability to keep the ball nice and tidy, play passes here and there. And then really, though, for me, Jake, it's playing that final pass, the vision that he has to play that final pass. He really has the opportunity to be a number 8 where he can dictate the tempo of the games and play a final ball, which makes him that much more valuable for this Portland Timbers club alongside the likes of Sebastian Blanco, Jimmy Chara, Diego Valeri.
Time to check in with Timbers head coach Giovanni Savarese. Earlier, I spoke with him from Orlando, presented by Alaska Airlines. Gio, thanks again for taking the time to chat with us ahead of your match against LAFC. 2 wins in 2 games. You guys start the group stage off with 6 points. You're through to the knockout round. Let's start with what's happened so far. How are you feeling about your team's performances?
Yeah, I think the 2 games, the approach has been very positive. I've been very content with what I have seen from the team, even though we can always improve, we can always get better. But overall, I think 2 very good performances against 2 good teams. And I think we look very balanced, we look strong in the back, we created chances. We have been able to find the moments in which we can control the game in the tempo that we want to make sure that we have, and I think that's been very mature from the group. So far, I think 2 very positive performances.
One thing that struck me as I've watched the tournament as a whole and your guys' games is the depth that you have, the number of options of really, really good and talented players on the bench for you in all of these games for you to choose from and just to pick from for your starting lineup. How difficult of choices do you have to make given how deep your roster is?
It's always difficult for a coach to make selections, especially when there's good competition, when everybody wants to play, and when everyone is so invested into doing well for the team. But also, at the same token, everyone understands that at some point they're going to have the opportunity, and once they're able to get into the game, they have to give everything for the group. So I think the mentality has been very positive, very good, very strong. And I believe that the guys that have come into the matches have allowed us to be able to, continue to have a good match. That have been able to help the players that are on the field in those moments that we need them to come in and help. And I think overall the group is done a great job, and it's a difficult job for me to make selections because everyone is competing.
You guys as a group are spending a lot of time together, right? Kind of, that's how the setup is there. How would you describe the camaraderie, the attitude, the atmosphere around the group off the field?
The environment is great. First is the priority is always going to be keeping everyone safe. So even yesterday we spoke about making sure that we continue to keep the protocols, to make sure that we keep on washing our hands, being smart, using the mask at all times. So we have to make sure that the guys stay safe, and that's always going to be our priority. Around ourselves, we feel very comfortable. We feel good. We like to be together. Training have been very good. The guys. It hasn't felt heavy. Sometimes when you're away for a while, you get to a point in which you start getting a little tired. Right now we feel still very fresh and good around ourselves. So I hope that we can continue the same way, and I think that mentality has helped the group to always approach the games in a very positive mindset.
How do you keep guys fresh as you enter this 3rd game of the group stage and a 3rd game in about 10 days, and then thinking, okay, you want to keep going, right? And you want this to be 3 of 7 games. How do you make sure that everybody stays fresh?
So it is a balance. First of all, is making sure that those that have played a little bit more, that they can get good regen, that they can get everything that they need in order to make sure that they recover. Those that haven't had as many minutes, that their training provides to them enough for them to be ready to, if the moments that they have to step on the field, that they can perform. We have other players also that were returning from some injuries, so also those players are catching up and looking stronger and stronger every practice. And besides that, you have to keep everyone in a good mental health. And so being able to stay, I think what we have done in keeping the group in the West Coast time, waking up a little bit later, makes the day shorter, makes the day a little bit more comfortable. Also watching the games at night, it doesn't feel too heavy that we're staying too late. So I think a lot of things that have kept the mind of everybody very healthy, and I think it's been a good approach.
You finished group play against LAFC, a team that you guys know very well. There have been some epic and feisty battles over the past 2 years between you and LAFC. No Carlos Vela for them at this tournament, but man, they've put up 9 goals in 2 games. What do you make of them this year? What challenges do they pose to you guys?
Yeah, they're always a team that is a competitive team. They're always a team that is going to bring a good game. I think our games, as you mentioned, have been always good matches, entertaining matches, and this might be similar to all the other matches that we have played. I think we're playing for a few important things. First, who's going to be first and second. Then also, we want to continue to accumulate points for the season. And besides, the fact that we want to be competitive. So I think it's going to be a good match, and we know that they're going to provide a lot of challenges.
Gio, we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us before the match against LAFC. Good luck against LAFC. Good luck as you move forward into the knockout round. One thing that stood out to me, not just from talking to Gio at that moment, Nat, but talking to the players as we have when they've been in Florida and we've been here, they're on Pacific time. They go to bed at 3 o'clock Eastern. They wake up at 11 a.m. Eastern so that when they're playing, like they will tonight at 10:30 Eastern, it feels like they're playing at 7:30. Like a normal, it's smart, it's pragmatic, and it seems like it's worked. Everybody that we've talked to seems to be good with it.
And if you talk to any coach, at this level, the rhythm is the most important thing when it comes to the players. And when you're able to control the environment like you can down in Orlando, that's exactly what Gio has done with this team, making sure that the players are waking up a little bit later. Sebastian Blanco was always joking, is this dinner or is this lunch we're eating right now? Because, the time zone is completely different, but they're still on Pacific time zone. So I think it's been really good for the team to be able to have that kind of rhythm, to understand that they're getting their rest and they're making the days a little bit shorter, soccer-centric, but they're also doing things, off the field that are important. I think Gio's done just a really good job of building that rhythm in, and the results have shown.
It's a 10:30 Eastern time start tonight in Orlando, but to the Timbers and to us, it'll feel like 7:30 Pacific time. That's when the Timbers and LAFC kick off on ESPN2. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back one final time on Timbers pregame presented by Carl's Jr. Talk about the lineup conundrum for these two managers and the final thoughts. We'll be back from Providence Park.
Happy presents a spicy Western. Western gone spicy. The new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Carl's Jr. Feed your happy.
We are back one final time live at Providence Park for Portland Timbers pregame presented by Carl's Jr., getting you ready for the Timbers and LAFC, the final match of the group stage of the MLS is Back tournament. A difficult decision for Giovanni Savarese and Bob Bradley, the two managers in this match, to make. Both the teams know that they're through to the knockout round. They're playing for positioning. Realistically, a win or a draw, the Timbers they'll win the group. That is not realistic. That is definite. That will happen. If LAFC loses, they're still probably going to finish second for the most part. If the Timbers lose, they know that the worst they can finish is second. So we're talking about a game for first and second place in the group. Just has to do with knockout round positioning. It's a regular season match, 3 points on the line. and you know that you've got to play with either 3 or 4 days rest, depending on whether you finish second or first. You have another game, and you want to go all the way to the final. So how do you deal with it if you're the managers? Let's start with Gio. He has a deep bench. If you're him, how do you handle tonight?
I think it's very complicated, Jake, and I think there's many layers to this, but I think certainly the biggest factor is the miles on those older players' legs. So I think you need to rotate a few of those guys out. You think of Laris Mabiala, Jorge Villafana, Diego Valeri, maybe even a Sebastian Blanco. If you get some rotation for those guys, they're all in their 30s, they can get back to peak performance in a couple of days. Whereas, the younger players, maybe you don't need to rotate them as much. We know Diego Chara, he's almost a lock for a starting position most times because he just seems like he's timeless. But I think you have to rotate those guys. But you do have depth. That's the most important thing for Gio right now. He's got a ton of depth to rely on. Younger players, I think, can come in and really, continue to bring this level up that it's been up so high.
Meanwhile, you're Bob Bradley, LAFC. You have a young group. I mean, they have made it a priority, kind of their team goal to go after young players, basically scour the under 20 South American national teams and sign players. Rossi, Rodriguez, a couple guys they're new to the team, Janela, Cifuentes, all under 20 or in that range over the past year or two, in the 20-year-old range. What do you do if you're Bob Bradley, who has in the past not liked to rotate with LAFC when they've had midweek games?
Well, Bradley doesn't have the kind of depth that maybe Gio has defensively. I don't expect to see a lot of rotation on the defensive end, but in the midfield, I think center of midfield, you could see Janela slotting in there. Mark Anthony Kaye, Atuesta are a very good combination. You could see Latif Blessing going from that midfield position to playing as maybe a false number 9. And then Bradley White-Phillips, obviously, that's the big question mark for me. He's in his mid-30s. He's going to need to get some rest. So I think that could be the one place that Bob Bradley tinkers. I don't see him tinkering in the wing area, the wide areas, because they've just been so ruthless, so good in the attack. And so I think those are the opportunities for Bob to exploit.
Yeah, if you didn't know, Bradley Wright-Phillips is now on LAFC, signed just before the beginning of the season after the Red Bulls didn't want to sign him, and he scored 2 goals in 2 games, starting both for them at the MLS's back tournament. But he is 35 years old, one of the oldest players on that team and in this game. Let's look at the injury report now, presented by Providence as we get ready to wrap things up here from Providence Park. One player out for the Portland Timbers, Dairon Asprilla, on season-ending injured reserve after a left knee surgery. Andres Flores, as we've talked about the past couple of shows, not with the team, with his family after the passing of his father. You may have seen his jersey behind Giovanni Savarese during the last match, honoring him. Not available as well. But Felipe Mora, off the injury report completely, is on the bench and available for Giovanni Savarese tonight. So that's it for us on Timbers Pregame, presented by Carl's Jr. We will be back at 10 o'clock tonight after the match against LAFC for Timbers postgame. You can watch that match, or watch that postgame show on Fox 12 Plus at 10 o'clock. You can also listen to this match on the radio coverage on 750. The game starts at 7. Nat and I will have the call starting at 7:30. You can get to your TV, 7:30 on ESPN2. For our entire crew here at Providence Park, for Nat Borchers, I'm Jake Zivin. Enjoy the match. We'll see you at 10 o'clock on Fox 12 Plus for Timbers postgame.